Hello, welcome back to MCFC Connect. I hope we are well. Today we are talking about a player that most probably wrote off to an extent, and his name is Matheus Nunes. So, joined Man City last season on transfer deadline day. Mainly came in because of De Bruyne's injury, but we signed him for about 60 million quid off Wolves. So not a cheap signing for a player that didn't exactly hit the ground running in Wolves. You know, he only had one season there, to be fair, but yeah, he didn't exactly hit the ground running in terms of stats anyway, compared to his sporting stats. And it's safe to say the pattern followed similar when he came to City. He came to City, didn't really play much, and whenever he did play, didn't look very impressive. That was always my opinion on it. You know, I don't think he ever played very good. And this season, though, it seems it's starting to click a bit more, and we're going to look at that right now. So, here are some of his stats. The ones that are a bit more yellow than the others are last season, and the ones that are white and yellow are this season. But as you can see, title is Nunes is shining on this graphic. Now then, thumbnail suggests like a 0 to hero kind of thing, and for me that is kind of what he's been at the moment, and to an extent. Okay, I'm not going to say he's been carrying the team on his back, but there's been a few things that have really revolutionised him in this team so far this season. As you can see on position, it says midfielder / left winger. That is deliberate. Usually, again, I just have one position, but last season we really saw Nunes in the midfield. He very rarely went off to the left, but this season he's been very much put onto the left-hand side and has sometimes joined in the midfield. Now then, for me, I think Nunes, from what I've watched of him, I think he belongs going off the left. I think he looks a lot more confident. I think he has a decent mix of what Jack Grealish and Doku provide you off the left. Jack Grealish provides you a lot of control on the ball. You know, he's a kind of player that can slow the game down type thing. You know, he will typically pass it back. He won't normally run at his man. You know, that is kind of what Jack Grealish has been at Man City. But Doku, rather the opposite. He's likely to lose the ball, but he's likely to run at his man. And a lot of the time, he does tend to win and cause a problem, maybe a little bit of a defensive panic in the moment. But Nunes, I think he can do a bit of both. Now, you can argue that's a bit of a jack of all trades type player. He can do everything, but is a master of nothing. I don't know if Nunes is exactly that, but he can definitely do those two things. I've seen it happen this season. Some of the runs he's had down the left-hand side have been really impressive, you know, even in a game like Bournemouth, where we were absolutely battered from start to finish, and that game should have been more than 2-1. You know, he was the main guy who made chances. I remember when it was 1-0 Bournemouth created the chance of Phil Foden that Phil Foden just didn't take. First half, he made the only meaningful attack for City. So even in games where we aren't performing, he has shown at least sparks of trying to get us back into the game. And for me, it's all coming off the left-hand side. Now, what I will say is every time I do think he's gone into the midfield, doesn't quite look the same. For me, that's my personal opinion. Now, moving on to games played. And so last season, he played a total of 30 matches. He hardly started a game. You know, he may have gotten a cup game here and there. He did not start many games. It just wasn't where he really operated, to be honest. I didn't see him start games much. And he usually would typically come off the bench in like maybe the last 20, 15 minutes, you know, less. You know, he did not get a lot of minutes last season. But this season, it's been rather the opposite. Now then, bear in mind we are only in November, and he's played 14 games, almost half of what he'd done last season. To begin, that was starting off with coming off the bench, but he came off the bench and played quite well, and now he's starting. I think he's had about 5 starts in a row now, so he's doing quite good, Nunes, for himself in terms of minutes. And in that time, in the 30 appearances he had last season, he had 4 goal contributions. Now then, you might be wondering, okay, if you guys, go out and do your own research, you might be wondering, hold on, it says he got 5 goal contributions last season. One of the assists he got, out of the 5 assists he got last season, were with Wolves. And, fair enough, to his own personal tally, he can include that. But I'm not including numbers he got for other clubs. I'm including only the ones he had for City. So he had 4 goal contributions with City last season. And this season already, he's already matched his assists and he's added goals on top. He's our second top goal scorer with, albeit with only 3 goals. That's how low the goals have been this season from other players. I think the only player that's tied with him is Phil Foden. And he's got 4 assists. I don't know how high that is. That very well could be the most assists out of any player for us this season. So, if anything's for certain, I'm pretty sure he has the second most amount of goal contributions for City, compared to last season, where he probably had some of the least. So, just let that sink in. And, over the last 10 games he's played, there's his ratings, and they've been pretty good. Okay, these aren't my personal ratings that I rated him in match reviews, but these are ratings from other sites. So, gosh, memory's really gonna have to kick in here. 8.19 would have been. I think that was Watford. I'm not sure what the 7.45 was. The 6s were games he came off the bench on, like Wolves, and another game. But then he gets a 10. In that game, he had 3 goal contributions. I think a goal and 2 assists. I think. The following game, I think that's Southampton, where he had an assist, and that assist wins Man City the game, by the way. We got it in about 5 minutes. The next 2 matches, I think one of those will be Tottenham. Another will be Bournemouth. And then the next 2 would have been Sporting and Brighton. So even in 2 games that we lost on our worst run ever in the Pep Guardiola era, he's gotten over 7.5 and over a 7. So he's still doing good in the games where we aren't doing very good, is what I'm trying to say. He's still kind of a shining light to be looking at and think there is a bit of hope. You could argue. That's my thing with Nunes so far this season. Sure, the 5.9, the 6.2, those 2 were starts. The other 2 6s, they were off the bench in the dying minutes. But those 2, the 5.9 and 6.2, they were starts. He did start those games. And then the 5.9, it suggests he was just under an average game for him. So, look, it's by no means been perfect. But this, compared to last season, is such a good improvement from Nunes. And I couldn't be happier, because at the end of the transfer window, Atletico Madrid came in. Apparently, we're snooping around and we're apparently looking to offer City a loan deal for Nunes. And look, I said at the time, I don't want that to happen, but if it happens, I'm not going to treat it like the end of the world. Well, thank the Lords that it didn't happen, because who knows where we'd be now? A midfielder short, okay, because we wouldn't signed anyone to replace him. A midfielder short, and with the injuries we've had so far, I don't even want to think about what we'd be talking about right now if that was the case. But look, that does wrap up this video. Big ups to Matheus Nunes for just playing absolutely, probably the best football he's played for City, and maybe even Wolves. Keep up what you're doing. I hope it isn't a purple patch, because we need, if it's going to be a purple patch, make it a long one. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this video. More on the way. See you in the next one.